For centuries, whispers have circulated through temples, mystery schools, and hidden manuscripts about a tiny glowing gateway within the human mind, a doorway to expanded consciousness, inner vision, and direct spiritual insight. And yet, in modern times, this sacred organ has been dismissed, minimized, or simply ignored. But why? Why would one of the most symbolically potent structures in the human body, the pineal gland, become a topic wrapped in silence, controversy, and half-truths? And more importantly, what ancient knowledge did past civilizations understand about it that we, in our technologically advanced world, have forgotten? Tonight, we step into a realm where science, spirituality, and suppressed wisdom overlap, a place where the pineal gland is not just a biological structure, but a mystical instrument, a cosmic antenna capable of perceiving realities beyond the ordinary senses. Imagine this: a tiny crystal-like gland sitting at the center of the brain, revered by Egyptians, honored in Vedic scriptures, feared by medieval rulers, and symbolized across countless cultures as the eye of illumination. A structure once considered the bridge between the physical and the divine, yet mysteriously pushed aside in modern discourse. Coincidence? Or intentional? In this video, we will explore the forgotten history of the pineal gland. Why so many ancient civilizations guarded teachings about it? Why later institutions sought to suppress or obscure its importance? Why modern people feel disconnected from intuition, imagination, and spiritual clarity? And whether this silencing was accidental or engineered. But this is not a conspiracy tale. This is a journey into hidden human potential, into the sacred architecture of consciousness that has been overshadowed for far too long. By the end, you'll see the pineal gland not just as an anatomical curiosity, but as a powerful spiritual instrument that, once reactivated, can transform perception, awaken intuition, and reconnect you with the deeper mystery of existence. Prepare yourself. This is ancient knowledge resurfacing. And once you hear it, you may never see your own mind the same way again. To understand why the pineal gland has been silenced for centuries, we must journey through the winding passages of ancient history, into temples, mystery schools, forgotten civilizations, and philosophical lineages that all pointed to the pineal gland as something far more profound than a mere organ. To the ancients, it was nothing less than a gateway. Long before modern science reduced the pineal gland to a biological curiosity, the ancient Egyptians revered it as the symbol of divine sight. The famous Eye of Horus, carved into temple walls and amulets, was not just a mythic emblem. It mirrored the anatomical structure of the pineal gland almost perfectly. To them, the pineal was the eye of the spirit, the organ through which human beings perceived higher realms of reality. Travel east to India, and you find the same reverence under a different name. The Ajna chakra, the third eye, the seat of intuition, inner vision, and spiritual awakening. Yogic traditions taught that when this inner eye opens, illusions fall away, revealing the subtle architecture of consciousness. Ancient texts didn't describe the pineal gland in biological terms, but in spiritual ones, as the bridge between the physical and the metaphysical. Even the Greek philosophers, celebrated as the fathers of rational thought, spoke in mystical tones when referencing this tiny gland. Plato described the soul as being tethered to the body by a luminous point within the head, an unmistakable reference to the pineal region. Later, Descartes famously called it the seat of the soul, not as poetry, but as a philosophical conclusion. He believed the pineal was the point where the immaterial mind interacted with the physical brain. What's striking is that all these cultures, Egyptian, Hindu, Greek, Taoist, Hermetic, and Gnostic, arrived at the same idea. The pineal gland is the center of inner illumination and spiritual perception. So how did something once seen as a cosmic jewel become ignored, dismissed, or even ridiculed? The shift began as humanity moved from spiritual cosmology to empirical materialism. As the scientific revolution reshaped the world, Anything that could not be measured, dissected, or quantified was cast aside. The pineal gland, with its mystical associations and elusive functions, became a casualty of this new worldview. But the story doesn't end there. Throughout centuries of religious consolidation and political control, teachings about inner vision and personal enlightenment were often suppressed. Empowerment through inner awakening was seen as dangerous, because individuals who look inward become less dependent on external authorities. Many esoteric schools went underground, preserving pineal knowledge in symbols, manuscripts, and coded teachings that only initiates could interpret. Meanwhile, mainstream thought shifted toward the external world: governments, institutions, dogmas, and systems of obedience. The idea that each human carries a built-in portal to higher consciousness became inconvenient and slowly faded from public memory. But something extraordinary has begun to happen in recent decades, as people around the world awaken spiritually, rediscover meditative practices, connect with ancient wisdom, and question the limitations of materialism. The pineal gland has re-emerged from the shadows, not as mythology, not as superstition, but as a lost key to understanding consciousness. In the next section, we'll begin decoding the deeper mechanics of this mysterious gland, why ancient cultures revered it, why it influences perception, and how its true purpose stretches far beyond biology. To understand why the pineal gland has been symbolically silenced for centuries, we must first journey back to the ancient civilizations that regarded this tiny organ not as biology, but as divinity itself. Long before modern science dissected the human body, the ancients saw the pineal gland as the bridge between worlds. In Egypt, it was encoded in the eye of Horus, a symbol representing perception beyond the physical senses. The proportions of the eye align uncannily with the internal anatomy of the pineal region, yet Egyptian priests insisted this was no coincidence. To them, the pineal gland was the lamp of Ra, the organ through which divine light entered human consciousness. Travel east, and you find the Hindu concept of the Ajna chakra, the third eye, the seat of intuition, inner sight, and awakening. It was believed that through this inner eye, sages could pierce the illusions of the material world and experience reality as energy, vibration, and consciousness. Yogic texts describe the pineal gland's awakening as the moment when the world becomes known as it truly is. In ancient Greece, philosophers spoke of the pineal gland with equal reverence. Plato hinted at an organ of spiritual perception, and in the later traditions of Neoplatonism, it was believed that the pineal gland allowed the soul to receive higher knowledge from the intelligible realm. Millennia later, René Descartes famously called the pineal gland the seat of the soul, suggesting it was the point where the immaterial mind interacted with the physical body. So why then did this profound understanding fade? The answer lies in the slow shift from mystical traditions to materialistic worldviews. As civilizations collapsed, temples fell, and religious authorities tightened their grip on doctrine, knowledge of inward awakening became dangerous. Systems of power recognized that a spiritually awakened population, one capable of direct inner insight, cannot be easily controlled. Thus, the pineal gland's symbolic significance was gradually buried under layers of dogma, suppression, and later, scientific reductionism. When the Age of Enlightenment arrived, the Western world embraced rationalism so fiercely that anything related to spiritual perception was dismissed as superstition. The pineal gland was redefined as simply another endocrine organ, no different from any other. The esoteric traditions, however, survived in fragments. Hermeticists, mystics, alchemists, and secret schools of knowledge continued to pass down hidden teachings in symbols: the all-seeing eye, the glowing flame, the radiant sphere at the center of the forehead. They preserved what could not be publicly spoken, that the pineal gland is not merely an organ. It is an interface, a lens, a potential doorway to expanded consciousness. And perhaps the greatest irony is this: the silencing was never complete. Even today, across cultures and disciplines, People describe spontaneous awakenings, visions, intuitive breakthroughs, expanded states of awareness, all pointing back to something ancient stirring within the human mind. The pineal gland has been overshadowed, minimized, even dismissed, but never truly forgotten. In the next section, we will explore how this silencing occurred, the mechanisms, spiritual, cultural, and psychological, that obscured the pineal gland's deeper purpose, and why this knowledge is resurfacing now, at this moment in history. If the first part of our exploration revealed how the pineal gland became shrouded in layers of silence, fear, and misunderstanding, now we turn to the deeper mystery, the hidden meanings, the paradoxes, and the forgotten truths that point to why this tiny gland at the center of the brain has fascinated mystics and unsettled institutions for centuries, because behind every myth, every suppression, every distortion, there lies a powerful question. What makes the pineal gland so extraordinary? 1. The inner Stargate concept. Ancient civilizations didn't see the pineal gland as mere anatomy. They regarded it as a portal, a bridge between the physical and the metaphysical. Egyptian priests depicted it as a sacred seed. Hindu mystics described it as the inner eye of fire. Greek philosophers called it the organ of noesis, direct knowing. These cultures, though separated by oceans and centuries, all pointed to a shared insight. The pineal gland may hold the key to expanded states of consciousness. This wasn't metaphorical for them, it was literal. Not because the pineal gland magically transports consciousness elsewhere, but because it may act as an interface between the brain and the deeper layers of awareness that modern science still cannot fully explain. This idea alone threatened established paradigms, both religious and scientific. 2. The dual nature of light. The pineal gland responds to light. Modern biology confirms this, but ancient mystics recognized two types of light. Outer light, perceived through the physical eyes. Inner light, perceived through the eye of the mind. Mystics claimed the pineal gland could detect both. This created a philosophical paradox. If humans possess an organ capable of perceiving inner light, intuition, visions, higher awareness, then consciousness cannot be confined to the brain alone. This idea was, and still is, deeply uncomfortable for institutions built upon control, materialism, or dogmatic interpretations of spirituality. 3. The forgotten spiritual technology. Across sacred traditions, the pineal gland was treated as a kind of spiritual technology, an instrument that could be tuned, awakened, and refined. Practices such as breathwork, sound resonance meditation, fasting, rhythmic chants, exposure to natural cycles were believed to activate or clear this inner organ. But over time, these techniques were either forgotten, suppressed, or misinterpreted as superstition. The deeper mechanics behind them, their actual purpose, slipped into the shadows. Why? Because an activated pineal gland made individuals harder to control. A person with inner clarity doesn't surrender their power. They question, perceive, and awaken. 4. The myth of calcification. Modern discussions often mention pineal calcification, a buildup of mineral deposits that appears to silence the gland. While the science is nuanced, the symbolism is undeniable. The idea of a once luminous organ becoming hardened, dimmed, or closed mirrors the spiritual condition of humanity, a collective loss of inner vision. Whether due to lifestyle, environment, or psychological fragmentation, the pineal gland became a symbol of our disconnection from deeper truth. Yet here lies another paradox. Even a calcified pineal gland can awaken. Ancient teachings insist that consciousness, intention, and practice can melt the inner stone, the way heat transforms ore into gold. The symbolism runs deep. 5. The hidden reason for centuries of silence. When you look at history, philosophy, and esoteric teachings as a whole, a pattern emerges. The pineal gland was silenced because awakening it leads to sovereignty. A sovereign human no longer looks outside for truth, salvation, or authority. They become self-realized, perceptive, intuitive, and inwardly guided. From empires to religious institutions to rigid scientific frameworks, such individuals were viewed as unpredictable, uncontainable. Thus, the silence wasn't random. It was strategic. But the silence is breaking. More people today are sensed that the pineal gland holds untapped potential, spiritual, psychological, and energetic. The ancient teachings are resurfacing not because they were rediscovered, but because modern consciousness is rising to meet them. Understanding why the pineal gland was silenced for centuries is only the first step. The true power of this knowledge is revealed when you begin applying it, when the forgotten temple within your own mind slowly awakens. And despite the aura of mystery surrounding the pineal gland, the practices to activate and purify it are simple, accessible, and deeply transformative. Remember, the ancients were not protecting information. They were protecting experience. Initiation comes through doing, not knowing. Let's explore the practices that bring this hidden organ of perception back to life. 1. Reclaim the inner stillness. The pineal gland responds to silence, darkness, and inner clarity. In a world overflowing with noise and distraction, these states have become rare. Daily practice. Spend 10 minutes in complete stillness, eyes closed, with slow breathing. You don't need to empty your mind, just observe it. The goal is to create a quiet space where subtle perception can rise. Over time, this begins to sharpen intuition, heighten inner vision, and reconnect you to sensations that modern living has numbed. 2. Light hygiene, the forgotten key. The pineal gland is extremely sensitive to light, especially artificial light. Constant exposure to screens and blue light keeps it in a state of perpetual confusion. Try this. Reduce screen exposure at night. Dim your lights after sunset. Spend at least 10 minutes daily in natural sunlight. This resets the gland's natural rhythm and strengthens its internal clock, something ancient cultures mastered long before electricity existed. 3. Symbolic activation. Ancient temples used symbols, geometric patterns, and sacred imagery to stimulate the pineal gland. These images weren't decorative, they were tools. Choose a symbol that resonates with you: the all-seeing eye, a mandala, a spiral, or a seed of life. Gaze at it softly for a few minutes, letting your breathing slow. This engages the subconscious and awakens the visual centers tied to the pineal gland. Over time, you may notice heightened creativity, sharper insights, or vivid dreams, the early signs of inner awakening. 4. Breath work for awakening. Your breath is a bridge between the physical and the subtle. Certain breathing patterns stimulate the vagus nerve and increase blood flow to the pineal gland. A simple technique: inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, exhale for 6 to 8 seconds. This activates the parasympathetic system and clears energetic fog that dims perception. Many initiates practiced variations of this method during rites of passage. 5. Clean your inner waters. The pineal gland is surrounded by cerebral fluid and delicate tissues. Ancient traditions emphasized purity, not in a moral sense, but a biological one. Modern adaptations: drink clean, mineral-rich water. Reduce processed foods, incorporate natural detoxifiers, mint, lemon, ginger. This isn't about perfection, it's about alignment. A balanced body supports a receptive mind. 6. Follow the signals. Once you begin this path, the pineal gland responds with subtle signs: heightened intuition, symbolic dreams, spontaneous insights, moments of synchronicity, sensations of inner light during meditation. Treat these not as coincidences, but as communication. The pineal gland does not speak in words. It speaks in symbols, impressions, and energetic shifts. The more you pay attention, the stronger the dialogue becomes. 7. Make space for revelation. Ancient initiates always withdrew after receiving insight. This wasn't isolation, it was integration. Give yourself moments of reflection. After meditation, breathwork, or symbolic practices, sit quietly for a few minutes. Let your inner world settle. Revelation requires space. Without integration, awakening becomes noise. You are not just learning about the pineal gland. You are reawakening a dormant sense that once guided prophets, mystics, and seekers through the mysterious architecture of existence. When you apply these practices with consistency and intention, the silenced organ begins to speak again. For centuries, the pineal gland has been treated like a footnote in biology textbooks, an insignificant pea-sized organ hidden deep within the brain. But across ancient civilizations, from Egypt to India, from Greece to the pre-Columbian world, this tiny gland was revered as something far more profound. The seat of perception, the gateway between the visible and the invisible, the throne of the soul. So why was this knowledge buried? Why was the pineal gland downgraded from a sacred organ to a biological curiosity? Because initiation requires awareness, and awareness leads to autonomy. The ancients knew that when a human being awakens their inner vision, they become impossible to manipulate, impossible to control, impossible to silence. They begin to think, feel, and perceive from a place of truth, rather than conditioning. A society built on obedience cannot afford a population that sees clearly. And so, over generations, this knowledge was diluted, ridiculed, and in some cases, deliberately overshadowed. What was once the eye of Horus, the third eye, the seat of consciousness, became nothing more than an endocrine gland in the modern narrative. But the truth never disappeared. It only slept, waiting for those willing to look inward. The pineal gland's ancient purpose is not mystical fantasy. It is a symbol of inner awakening, intuition, and higher perception. When it activates, you begin to sense the deeper layers of reality, the interconnectedness of all things, the presence of intuition guiding you, the subtle energies shaping your inner and outer world. This is why understanding the pineal gland is not about conspiracy or science versus spirituality. It's about remembering who we truly are. And now the question turns to you. If this knowledge was silenced for centuries, what will you do now that it has resurfaced? Will you let it settle as interesting information? Or will you explore it, practice it, live it? If this journey awakened something within you, share your insight in the comments. And if you want to continue uncovering hidden truths, ancient wisdom, and the forgotten power within the human spirit, stay with us. Because what you've discovered tonight is only the beginning.